Bill is going to be here in 2 shapes.
Oh,
Claims.
is Tamara Barnes joining us tonight?
Oh, she's going to be, I've heard from her about it.
They just swore me in, I had to sign them at a firm for it.
Nice.
Were you sitting here?
No. No, I'm up here.
This is Travis guy.
That's this cast set to the TV. So this is kind of the
It's too formal.
interface with our
Yeah. Technology.
That's power. Power comes into here, then the USB. So this kind of does everything so that we can just operate on one USB.
So we are live right now?
We are,
Yes. Oh, it says it's recording.
You are live right now. Correct.
I'm told we're live right now.
Somebody's talking.
Got it on.
You gotta be careful not to say anything, strange before the meeting starts.
Like, your hair looks really, really.
Like, hey, what's that?
Ready to roll call?
No,
We want to wait a few minutes?
we don't have a chairman right now, so unless vice chairman.
Well, how many people we need? We need a quorum.
Oh, we
We
got
got a quorum. Doesn't matter. We can wait for Randall.
Yeah, I just need.
He's sometimes late.
Yeah.
I'm not working, we're not. I'm just inserting myself into a comfortable position. I was here last, I did present last time.
You see the picture of Randall in the jail, standing up against the.
Audrey.
There's,
I know.
standing up against the size board with his black and white.
No, I didn't see that.
Regular mugshot.
Where would you have seen that? Where would we have seen that?
Facebook.
Oh. I don't have Facebook.
The people that get on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just happened to see him on there. I told him he was doing a good job. Keep up the hard work.
Very convincing. Make a very convincing jailbird.
Yeah. Moving on. Have they opened the jail yet? I mean, for the prisoners, are the prisoners in the new jail?
I don't think they've moved them over there yet.
Maybe down to like 50 prisoners right now.
They're down to 50. That's pretty low, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Normally it was 100, it was 100 and something most of the time.
Well, they're not
Before
taking,
COVID.
the only thing they're taking in are felony arrests, warrants, violent offense, domestic violence, assaults.
We're not on that zero bail thing, are we?
Define zero bail.
Cash bail, zero cash bail.
No, not quite.
Hey.
But the bails have become a lot more lenient.
Okay.
But if it's a solid domestic violence or felony, those are still by the same structure we've always had. But like they're not doing any probation violations right now by warrant or by sentencing, district court, a lot of things like that. They just don't want to deal with it right now. I don't know when they'll get over, but I think they're hoping early January.
Oh, good. Thanks for the update.
Which I figured out was $4,300 a day in interest.
Yeah.
It was only costing $3,000 a day. I could house them all up in Calhoun County.
So
It's just taxpayer.
it's 5:30 and we're being recorded. So.
Yeah, so we should take it.
We should probably get going.
Yeah.
Well, hey, okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's Wednesday, December 8th, 5:30-ish p.m. Roll call, please.
Chairman Hazelmaker.
Here.
Member Rackesee? Here. Member Zimmer? Zimmer. Member Warren is not here. Member Kelly? Member Johnson?
Here.
Member Shackelford?
All right, we're up to the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look at the historic district mission regular minutes of September 20th, 2021? Are there any comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept said minutes.
I move to accept the September minutes.
Second.
Motion with support. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
We don't have to do a roll call.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We're up to public comments. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board at this time?
We have Katie Higgs, who's our CEDAM fellow, joining us tonight to introduce herself. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you. Yes, I am Katie Higgs. I am the CEDAM Fellow. That stands for Community Economic Development Association of Michigan. And I am here funded through a grant with CEDAM and also the Michigan Economic Development Corporation for a total of 15 months. I'll be working on various projects, mostly related to getting the RRC certification, which stands for Redevelopment Ready Communities, but also going to be assisting Audrey with the Main Street program, which you'll hear more about from her later, and some other grant programs, applying for those as well, and then maybe some other things that will come into my work plan later on, depending on what we work out. But those are kind of my main focuses right now. So I'm originally from Brighton. I moved here from Chicago. I was there for 2 years and went to Michigan State University before being in Chicago. Now I'm here in Coldwater, and I've been here since October. So it's nice to meet you all, and excited to sit in on your meeting.
Marty helped us apply for a neighborhood enhancement program grant through Michigan. So hopefully we'll be getting that. And we've gotten that grant the last couple of years, and it's an opportunity for us to give micro grants to homeowners for home improvement and maintenance projects up to $7,499. So we're excited to be able to offer those opportunities, and it's been a big help having Katie here to help supplement staff time getting better around. Part of her fellowship is CEDAM and Michigan or MEDC are paying for her to be here. So we basically get another full-time employee through the generosity of those organizations.
All right, next up, project review.
We haven't received any applications for projects reviewed now.
Okay. How about any old business?
Staff doesn't have any old business. I don't know if any commissioners have old business.
I mean, we basically, that's what we deal with is old business.
And this is newer old business.
Yeah. All right, we're up to new business. Update on the city Main Street designation.
So the city is going through we've been accepted into the Michigan Main Street program, which is the National Main Street program is actually part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So it's really a historic preservation based approach to economic development. It's only available to communities with traditional downtowns. So this is the kind of program that not every community in the state can even be accepted into. So we're really excited. It's a competitive application process. So we were one of the communities selected this year, and Audrey has done a terrific amount of work to get us into that designation. How big was the application packet you had in mail in?
150 pages.
Yeah. So it's just
Excellent. Oh my God.
Interesting.
20 minutes.
Much longer than the trick.
So by participating in the Main Street program, we get some benefits. It's the national and state level organizations will provide us with a lot of technical assistance. With that comes market research and a number of other kind of strategies. So we get a lot of extra information that otherwise we wouldn't have the capacity to develop. So that's the key benefit. It also makes us eligible for another range of grant opportunities. So just by being part of it, you know, it opens up more doors for us and for our residents and stakeholders. It also forces us to get serious, not necessarily serious, but do data collection within a framework and tracking within a framework. And they give us different tools to kind of guide us and help us think about what kind of data we should be collecting on downtown businesses, downtown buildings and whatnot. So one of the key benefits is it gets us into thinking more seriously about how we get that data and what format. It's really helpful for that to be in. Part of the Main Street program is also engagement and creating engagement with stakeholders, volunteers, and the thought process being that way. We've got this kind of grassroots core of people that aren't city employees that are hopefully pursuing projects that they're excited about. And that way it's not dependent on one person in City Hall kind of guiding those things. So there's a lot of that grassroots kind of building as well. So the Main Street approach has kind of 4 points to it. Those are economic vitality, strengthening existing assets while diversifying the economic base. Design, the focus of the physical atmosphere on the downtown, particularly architecture, streetscape, public art, and public spaces. So really creating a space that people feel comfortable being. Promotion, so creating a positive image of the district and promoting community pride while sparking interest in visiting downtown. Some of this is telling the story of your successes, and that's something that I think the city from time to time struggles with is we do something and we think it's a good thing, but we're not always great at telling everyone about this thing that we've done. And you know, that's something we need to do a better job of. And that's something that most communities need to do a better job of too. Main Street recognizes that, you know, part of their approach is helping us tell those stories. An organization, which is building consensus and mobilizing stakeholders and volunteers toward a shared vision and a sense of ownership in the community, a sense of making the downtown their downtown, so that they feel a sense of pride in that downtown and hopefully want to come and visit it. The example I always kind of use of creating that sense of ownership is, you know, when kids go away to college and they think of their downtown, what is it they're thinking about? Are they thinking about the Tibbetts and the areas of the downtown Monroe Street? Or are they thinking about the intersection between Applebee's and Walmart? Because if that's all that they're if that's their scope of cold water, then they can get that anywhere. So it's really about focusing on the things that are uniquely cold water. So there are three kind of pillars to this. There's a vision. It provides a foundation for outlining the community identity, expectations, dealing with future development while being grounded in understanding of economic market realities of the district. And those market realities are changing fast. Retail has been struggling since supermarkets started coming in the 70s and 80s, coming to cold water in the 90s. And now with online sales, you know, it's just transforming the retail kind of landscape nationwide, worldwide, in ways that I don't think that we can fully anticipate right now. So, you know, we need to be mindful of that and always trying to be adaptive. Transformation strategies to identify long-term and short-term actions that provide a clear sense of priorities and direction to move the community closer to implementing their vision. Working on strategies to align with the Main Street 4 points of organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality, which are, you know, we covered on the last slide. And then Main Street organization must show visible results that can only come from implementing action items and completing projects in the short term and long term. Main Street must focus on measuring progress and results in order to justify and demonstrate a wise use of scarce resources. So these are things that we need to do in order to stay engaged in the Main Street program as well. So Audrey has had 10 meetings in the last 2 days with 8 different stakeholder groups, constituting around 40 people. Those are promotion and marketing, design and preservation, building owners group, a business owners group, city officials, city staff, economic development, and civic leaders, and then the DDA. And the DDA is operating as the Main Street Board for Coldwater. That's true in a lot of communities, probably the majority of communities, but some communities form their own Main Street Board, and that's the board that administers their Main Street programs. But in our case, it's the DDA. So some of the data that we are putting together looks like this. This is a map from the application process, and what this is showing is those red outline parcels are Main Street parcels. The orange parcels are DDA TIF parcels. The purple parcels are the historic district parcels. And what this is kind of showing in a lot of ways is that there's a lot of overlap when we talk about downtown. The downtown can mean a number of different things. And this isn't even showing zoning of what the C2 Central Business District zoning district is. So you throw all this on like a Venn diagram and there's a lot of overlap there, but each of these things also means different things. These Main Street parcels, we need to collect data on actively. The DDA parcels, of course, contribute to the TIF fund. The historic district, those parcels are all regulated by this board. So this is another map from the application. This is our first floor of data, where we assign, we catalog the uses on each of our properties, each of these buildings, and the occupancy status of it, and try to put it into a map. And there are instructions for something like, you know, trying to map the building usage, the kind of scale of usage, the type of business, and put it all on an easy to read map. And the easy to read part becomes a little bit of a challenge at times when you're trying to cram a bunch of stuff together.
It's pretty.
It turned out very aesthetic. This is an example of what our data collection looks like. We've got a couple spreadsheets going, and it's just a lot of data, and a lot of data that requires getting in the trenches a bit, and like going out and really interacting. And so Audrey's done a great job of that. We had some help from MMK Consulting and doing some data collection as well.
Dean made these maps and Dean pulled all this stuff. I filled in a lot, but it didn't appear.
So that's my slideshow on what the Main Street is and where we kind of are, and our engagement of it. I don't know if Audrey's got anything she wants to add.
Okay. So,
Potential pages.
well, I mean, here we go. Sarah was there. And Randall. Okay, it's Tim and Katie. So you guys, we're gonna go over what they talked about during the design fairs this morning. Do you want to recap? Yeah, recap. So there was a design focused meeting this morning, one of the stakeholder groups, and so we had some board members there.
So we talked about a few things, mainly because there were a lot of historic preservation people there. We talked about buildings and building maintenance and pressure on business owners to maintain buildings and the expense, but the importance of it. We talked and introduced them to what Audrey is doing currently with the facade grants, but also talked about the need for other non-pretty things like roofs or DDA compliant, you know, making things DDA compliant or safe. So, which you need to have usability. So we just kind of had a general discussion and overview of that. We also talked about anything that we noticed when we were walking downtown. So we talked about trees being really important to kind of separate that traffic off US 12. We talked about crossroads and how there are, like, the Monroe Street doesn't have a crossroad. And we can talk about where people cross anyway. I don't know if that's gonna change because that would actually require MDOT's permission, and I doubt that it'd be tough. It'd be a longer term goal. What else did we talk about? We talked about education and how to form and frame different things to make it digestible and easy for people.
Restoration, money that's available with the facades. I talked about how I'm a little surprised we still have windows that are boarded up downtown. Oh my gosh. When I toured the Taylor's building on the side of Hampshire Street, the glass is all still there. So we've got to carefully take the wood off. Granted, the glass might be restored, but it's there. All the guts are there. They just boarded it up and then painted it to look like, it's like, oh, that's not good. And just in general, what bugs me too is talking about the Taylor's building is it's got leaves and crap and the windows need washed, and I'm just kind of
We talked a little bit about maintenance, but it is surprising how much more welcoming a place can be just by cleaning and maintaining. I mean, it's shocking, really. So I think that there's like a lot of little things that we could do. One thing that we didn't really get into was kind of creative placemaking. And I think that kind of touches not only on design, but it also talks about connecting community and bringing community downtown. And the other thing that I didn't mention is I think that when we talk about walking downtown, we didn't really talk about layers. And I think it's really important to layer things. And what I mean by that is you have traffic that drives straight through. And if you can see giant lines and nothing, no barriers, if those trees weren't there, it just led up to the sidewalk and buildings, cars would go naturally faster. So the more you actually visually layer something, and that means awnings, benches, places to sit, big thing, pots of flowers, that layered cultivation of that sidewalk space will actually naturally make people go slower, which I think is more pleasant for hanging out downtown.
It reduces noise, it reduces that sense of giant metal things zipping by you. And it's something that really needs to be through design. You know, out by I-69 a few years ago, MDOT had re-signed that stretch of US 12 to 35 miles an hour. I have a hard time going 35 miles an hour. I'll naturally find myself, you know, looking down at my speedometer and I'm at 40, sometimes up to 45, because the design of the road is such that it's meant to move traffic, and so it moves traffic, and the lanes are wide. There's no obstructions nearby, and so just naturally it kind of pulls people to drive at the speed that the road's designed. So by doing a better job of designing the roadways in areas where we want people to drive with more attention, is something that we need to be, I think, proactive and working with MDOT to.
We also talked about using color in crosswalks at one point. That's another kind of attention grabber.
Yeah, I just read that we should go through the quarter improvement planning doc.
Yeah.
In the meeting.
Audrey, I had a hard time understanding you, especially with your mask on.
I'm not projecting very well. I said we should go through the quarter improvement planning doc at a meeting sometime, like walk through some of that aggregate people's feedback, but also the visuals that have been put together to address like the things that we're talking about.
Is
I
that
know some
something?
of you were involved with different parts of that. I don't remember everyone who was. We have a pretty big group for different things. But I think that would be interesting.
Is that something that I should share around? I know it's still kind of draft form, right? So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could just share it directly if you want.
I'll share the draft, it's like a final draft of the corridor improvement plan that the DDA has been working on. And that's ways to strategize kind of a future vision for the downtown. And it's from the DDA perspective, so it's not necessarily a historic preservation plan, but it's just kind of that overarching strategy for downtown. So at the conclusion of this meeting, I'll email that out.
Something else, or in addition to, I guess, we talked about like education, preservation, the need for like our community to have resources in all in one place. And I know the downtown or the DDA, myself, that we know that like we need our own separate website. And I think that would be a good place to also house information about historic preservation, whether that's like grant resources, local programs, contractors that are within a certain range of us, things like that, about how we can do a better job of kind of pulling that together for people, because it can be overwhelming, having it easily available. So we are scheming for our website, but we kind of have to do some branding work first for that, so.
That too.
Yeah.
So the room's also designed to move
Yeah.
sound this way.
I thought
So.
they were building something over
If someone is zooming in, like we'll zoom in, so they've got the speakers going, all kinds. So,
If I just make a comment, Sarah, I think you're absolutely right. The leaves in the doorways and the dirty windows, there's nothing that speaks more of a neglected area. I remember going through that harbor years ago, dirty windows. And I don't know how that gets done, if, this has owners, if they do, I don't think the city should be paying for that.
Well, this
Well, it's
does
our-
own it.
It is
The Taylor's building is,
Right.
and, to that point, the city is kind of, in some ways, an avatar of the collective, like, resources and will of the entire community. So we should be the model business owners. Like,
That's true.
we can't expect anyone else to take care of their buildings if we can't take care of our buildings. And so it really is unacceptable, and would get on our facilities.
But
And they've got other things going on, so
True.
some of it benefits us to hear that and direct our attention back toward.
nothing like a semi 35 miles an hour, they'll bring a dust storm behind them, and it's just true, it'll be a constant battle.
but it still needs to be done.
Yeah. It's interesting talking about trees. Because I love architecture, I'm not a huge fan of trees downtown because it's hiding. When I'm in another town, I'm trying to take a picture and there's a tree in the way. So there I am.
It was you.
Yeah, and at a previous meeting a year or two ago, a similar group said something about, trees are really important. Think of Saugatuck. I'm like, Saugatuck is beautifully lined with big old trees, and you can't see the architecture, but boy, that shade sure is nice. And I was like, okay, I can give up. I think I want trees now.
Or you can see it, but you have to be like a pedestrian.
You just have to take a picture.
Yeah, and that's what you are in Saugatuck.
The
You have to
person
park.
taking a picture across the street.
Yeah,
You have to do it in the fall after the leaves drop too.
yeah, and I sometimes I wait until they drop before I take it.
The street trees are really a modern thing too. You look at any of the pictures in your books, no trees downtown, and that's basically true of cities worldwide. Throughout the Victorian era, there were trees in cities, and a lot of historic context. They were trying to get rid of trees downtown because they do damage. So street trees are really something that is within the last 100 years, something that cities have actively been doing.
Well, as we're talking about, making things more energy efficient, that tree shading your building or shading your windows from the sun in summer is making your building cooler,
Yeah.
right? So there are positives along with the upkeep of them, right?
Yeah, well, when we lost some street trees on our block in front of our house, it completely reshaped the color palette that we were considering for our house, because now we didn't have that shade.
It also
So,
made it much warmer in the summer.
yeah, so the darker color palette that we were thinking of was going to be just brutal.
Do you guys have ideas about how to, like, I know obviously you can do bigger workshops for things to cover topics and invite them to, but also like smaller ways to get information to people, or like best practices and things like that? Okay.
Well, there's one of the things that we don't do is the actual physical owners of the buildings don't get together to talk about this stuff. And, we have the DDA, we got people like us, but it's just a smattering of people. And so if you could get a barbecue or something, something to have a meeting and have everybody get together as a social deal, but also give them a little bit of information about trying to make the downtown more presentable, that would probably be an initiative, a way to go. Another thing that happens is when I was a kid, the downtown was full and it was always open in the evening. And so all the store lights were on. Now it's not that way because we've got offices and we've got modern fronts that don't support that cozy warmth of glow of the business. And so one of the things is to convince each individual owner that there is a value of standing out in front of their store and looking at their building at night, and somehow figure out how to light it from sundown to 9 p.m. or sundown to 10 or whatever, just to make the whole downtown could look more vibrant. Because when you drive down the street after 4 o'clock and there's no sun, and you've got vacant buildings or you got active buildings that don't have any lights on, it looks bleak. So one of the ways to cozy it up is like Disney World does it. I mean, they make everything look cozy all day and all night. Well, part of it is if you look at it, their facades are all lit from inside and from out, even if they're not using the building, it's still lit properly. And so the business owners, like, and I've lit my shop from 4 p.m. to 11 every night forever, and the building next door I did that way too. But things change, and we've got new buildings, we got new owners, we got new foot, and so they have to be convinced that there's an issue of making the downtown look inviting, even if they're not open. Because next day when somebody drives through, you say, what do you think of Coldwater? And say, well, I think it's a cozy place. But if they've driven through and there's no lights on, they don't think that the next time you ask them. So that's something that could be done. That doesn't, we just have to convince the store owners, all individuals, they have their own set of reality. We've got to convince them that that's part of it.
The other advantage to that is I've had people say, because I leave my light up, my barber pole on, when I leave at 5, I leave the light on all night. And I've had people say, I didn't know that you were there, that the barber shop was there until I saw your light on when we were going to eat at Broadway or whatever. So there is that.
I think the lights on the trees have really enhanced. I love that.
I think so too.
It's that beautiful. Yeah.
But Don's right, it's that framing. How do you frame it and convince people that it's in their best interest to do X, Y, and Z?
Well, if you talk to people, like I sell window treatments to people, and some of them are in the higher end. And part of it is you say, this is going to look correct inside your house, but it's also gonna look correct as people drive through the neighborhood. And the more expensive the properties are, the more important that is. And so we just have to convince people that it is important to look back at your building at 9 o'clock at night when you're not using it and see what it looks like. And see if you can make it look better.
And then provide strategies, right?
Yeah, it takes work. It's, I mean, you gotta think about it, and you might have to get some an expert opinion on lighting, but basically, it's something that you start thinking about it, you can warm up the whole downtown by making it look like it's open for business, even if it's not.
And also store windows, like that's another part, especially with the empty buildings and empty buildings that people give access to, like why not have a monthly themed display that looks like it's full? Maybe you even have a sign that says, I'm for rent. But it gives people this idea of, oh, my stuff could fit well in here, or what can I do with my business in here?
Right, because you can walk down the street and you say, oh, that building's vacant, that building, I mean, you can automatically see it just by looking at the dirty windows and the crap in the windows that is blowing around that, you know, nobody's paying attention to.
Yeah.
But if they dress it up and make it look important, even though they're not using it, it's a better deal.
One of the ideas Audrey has said in the past, and this is something she's brought up to you, but I've been thinking about it because I think it's a great idea. It's doing some sort of open house of businesses in old buildings downtown. So you would have the first floor, which is mainly retail, or sometimes it's an office space. That would be open, but then also doing the upper floors as well and having tours of those old buildings. And I was thinking about it because I know there's an organization in Chicago called Chicago Architecture Center, and they do an open house every year, and basically interesting, architecturally interesting buildings in Chicago are open to the public where they might not normally be, maybe their offices, maybe their, you know, private residences even. But there are times when people are, you know, allowed to go inside, you buy a ticket, you might do events there, you might have, but that would be a great opportunity to have, you know, an open house of sense and have talks about how to take care of buildings, or maybe have somebody from the State Historic Preservation Office come in and give a talk on how to best preserve old spaces or historic places or that sort of thing. Like there might be some interesting things to do. You have cheese and wine and hors d'oeuvres at places, and then also have, you know, it'd be a great opportunity for the business owners to put their things on display too, and have people come in and, you know, use all the businesses as well. So I think there's like a lot of, as we saw, there's a lot of overlap on the map and a lot of common interests. So we could, I think, have a lot of creative things to draw people into downtown to either look at those buildings or make use of those spaces.
On that note, I'm gonna continue that idea and pair it with Don's idea. You could invite downtown business owners to this event where you get to see the Taylor's building because the city owns it. You show them upstairs, and you also talk about what you can do with your own property to enhance it and make it look more desirable and make it look more welcoming. And maybe you have like essentially a mini session, mini informational session. I don't know whether something like that would work. Maybe there's chili there. Maybe it's not like a barbecue because it's inside and it's winter, but you know, something along those lines.
And I think we need a little peer pressure.
That's really up to like business that's where downtown business owners, I feel like, come in and just say, this is important because what you do next door affects me. Because ultimately it does, right?
Right. I think a lot of the business people, they aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about running their business, and when it's 4 o'clock, they shut the door and the lights are off and they go home, they go, gosh, I'm glad that's over. But, you know, you need to encourage them to look longer term.
So you need a coordinator to come up with ideas and implement them, whether it's packaged window cleanings that happen, you know, twice a year, or, you know, a strategy for window designs, getting a consultant, hiring a consultant, and it costing you guys minimal to nothing for them to come up with and implement designs, or having a window dresser, you know, that talks about, you know, window dressings for your upper windows or lighting. That helps. So, I mean, it would have to be designed, ultimately designed by you guys to decide what you need and how can we implement that on a broader scale. If you're too busy, you know, like you are, let's face it, you're too busy. Because you're dealing with your clients, you're not thinking about the ancillary things. So it's like, it's almost like you needed someone to think ancillary for you.
And there's other things you think about, is like, you know, when it snows, the downtown is jammed up for days, and not every building owner participates in shoveling their walk.
Yeah.
And there's always this big argument, why don't you shovel your walk? And if the city would just do it.
Yeah.
And just,
They did.
well, they do, but they don't sometimes. But anyway,
You do eventually.
if you had a policy that said, we're going to do this because we want the downtown to look better all the time, rather than a fight about it. I mean, these are and cleaning up leaves, maybe sending the street sweeper through 2 times extra a year, things like that, yeah, they're getting done, but are they getting done enough?
Right.
And so, you know, all that stuff is what makes Grand Rapids look good downtown all year round. And Coldwater could also look at some of those niche things and become a better place.
Yeah, we'll look at a couple of things, I agree to an extent, but Main Street is also about like people taking pride and ownership in their spaces. And not always doing everything for them that we could. Because it makes, I mean, some things, yeah, to make it easier, like street sweeping and things like that, definitely makes sense, but also how can we get them to want to do things themselves? That doesn't mean like they need to reinvent the wheel for everything, but yeah, how can we, because I know Lisa said like, they used to do garland, she did a garland project once way back, and like, building owners still had to pay for it, but they said, hey, if you do this garland for the holidays, I'll come measure your door, this is what it will cost, things like that,
Another thing that I mean, personally, I like to see streets that are well paved, but also lined and painted properly with curbs painted. When the city lets the paint wear off till where you almost can't see it, it doesn't present a vibrant place. So it'd be better if we would up the ante and make sure that everything's painted. All the zones are painted on a more frequent basis than they are, not just, I know we're subject to budgets and stuff, but that's all part of the look, is if it looks like you're a vibrant place, it'll be a vibrant place. If it looks crummy, it's gonna be the abandoned Walmart parking lot.
And it is about attracting, like, who do you want to attract to your downtown?
Right.
And why? Who do you want to attract as your potential next door neighbor?
You wanna attract customers that are pleased to go where they're going, not they're going there because they just have to, you know. So anything you can do to make it more inviting, the better. And some things are out of the business owner's control, but some things are not. Like you say, and I agree with that, the business owners need to do whatever they can to make their world better, but they have to be instructed or told that there are certain things they could do to make their building better.
I just had a few fresh ideas, so in addition to like the education part of it, and then giving them the tools and to do things themselves, if you tie like awards to specific improvements you want, so like you put the flowers out, right? You do a great job with flowers, like what if you had an award for like best blooms?
Best what?
Best blooms. Or someone's giving like the nightlight award, because their building looks banging.
Okay.
Or
Write everything down, best nightlight.
Well, you know, the other thing is,
You know, things like that.
I have flowers out there every year, but it's because NYCERD's helped me put automatic waterers on them, and I don't have to water them, they don't die.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost a lot, but if you could get 10 other businesses to do that, then you'd have you not only have the planters on the street, but you have the warmth of the plants on the buildings.
Yeah.
And in a more, and that don't burn up and go away, you know, because all you do is turn on the water and it comes on for an hour every morning and drips water on them and you're done. I don't have to, I tried it for years and things burned up all the time. When it got to
Yeah.
90 degrees in August, it was bad. But this way they survive.
But these are potential examples and offerings that we could say, hey, maybe if we group together and have everyone on the street do it, maybe Nitrix would cut us a deal.
Yeah. I'm
Right?
thinking about that for all time.
Yeah.
When you're talking about negotiating on a large scale,
I can tell you
Like with
that
windows or with those windows.
it was a very minimal cost. It was Nitrix expertise of saying, yeah, we can do this, and coming into my building and just saying, there's the water line and this is what we're gonna tap into. And there, we're gonna, and so he took an hour out of his time to help me, but it made the difference in making the flowers look good. And I'm sure without minimal cost, any business owner for $300 could do that. And then they're done. It's a one-time deal and you're done. But then you gotta buy flowers every year.
I was gonna say, but maybe buying the flowers and having them come plant them is part of that
Yeah,
deal.
he comes and delivers them and everything. I don't even have to.
I see them out there and cleaning up at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it would contact local businesses like Nitrix and say, could you put together some demo ideas of what you could do to each building downtown? Or, you know,
Yeah, 'cause
or
some-
building town, building
Yeah,
stuff.
some of the businesses would pop for that. Some of them won't have any interest at all.
But if you get 10 of them, that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, because it just warms up the whole environment.
We definitely have a million good ideas. I think, so like the next steps for Main Street is like we've collected a lot of feedback, there will be a community survey and a community leaders survey that we do for like 3 weeks, beginning in the middle of January. That I'll obviously want you guys to fill out and share with your networks. And then at the end of February, we'll have a big public meeting in here where we basically unveil the actual transformation strategies, which is based on the survey, it's based on the stakeholder meetings, it's based on market data as well. And then we're using those transformation strategies, how we start to prioritize what we're actually going to work on. Which will be interesting to see, like, how do you choose, like, which of our 10 great ideas do you chip away at? But also trying to bring in to expand our capacity to do these things. So like working with the HDC to see if there's small things that you guys can get behind and I don't want to say farm out to you, but work with you that's Main Street oriented, that fits within those transformation strategies and also meets your goals. So we might be seeing / asking for some participation and to whatever extent you.
One comment, I know a lot of people that were involved in the planning execution of our 4 park downtown got beat up pretty good about cutting trees off. I am still amazed every time I get to that main intersection and see what is down there. It's like, this doesn't look like a whole lot. This is really nice. I am so excited and I think, you know, start building on Main Street. I don't know how to do it. That intersection is, I'm surprised you don't have accidents from people just looking at it.
Luckily, when you're sitting at the traffic light, you can look at it.
I look out my window at work and I watch the progress.
That's only half done too.
It's only half done. I'm just amazed at it. I went to a day presentation up in Marshall, and I think it was through, I got it through, I think the chamber. I called up, it was a free event. I think their DDA up there paid for it. This guy came in, he was talking, it was for businesses and his whole program is you have to find your specialty and he will go into a business. What is your specialty? Here's just one quick example. Someone had a candy counter like 54 feet long. It was the longest candy counter in the world. And so they advertise that and then they put this, and they go online, they put this, suddenly people are driving. I see this 54-foot candy counter. One person had the longest dog treat counter in the world. And people come, they almost, find out, people were driving hundreds of miles out of their way to go to these little spots in the middle of nowhere, and he just had example after example, and these were people that were just barely hanging on. And he said, you know, you gotta find that niche and get out there. It was a good program. I never did hear, I could find out how much, I know it was pretty pricey to bring him in. They felt it was worth it for, you know, downtown Marshall. But here's the thing about Marshall. Next time you go to Marshall, you can drive down Main Street, it is beautiful. Drive on the back parking lots and you see something totally different. There's windows out, there was a door on the second floor. What do you need a door on? I said, how does that happen up there? I mean, I see windows out of that. He said, Dad, they know these businessmen are barely hanging on. And if they crack down on it to do things, I'm like, I can't get this done. To find another building, they don't want a vacancy. And right now, I don't think there's any vacancy. In fact, the gentleman will go down the steps to a block. Yep, that's all rented out. The people go there, and you know, it's like once success starts, people will show up. I took my wife to get her haircut one day. I said, I'll stop downtown and get a bite to eat. There are 6 restaurants in downtown Marshall. So I said, I never know that many places to eat. The other problem is, you have all these people like, we said this is downtown. Would you go down there and shop? Would you go down there and spend more money? Well, probably not. Probably go to Walmart, Myers, or whatever. I mean, I don't know how we change that attitude.
We actually talked about that, I don't know which sessions, I don't know if it came up as much in design. It's interesting in a place that serves every resident at different stages of life, at different times of day, on different days of the week. I lost my train of thought. That's what's
We've got over 2,000 parking spaces downtown. And we need to do a better job of telling that story that you can come and park and go anywhere. There's over 2,000 spaces downtown, and you know, there's 13,000 people in the community. So you can park like a third of the community's households downtown at any single time. It's not an issue there, but it's an issue in making people feel like they can navigate through the downtown. And one of the things that I think of a lot, because I live, 2 blocks from here, is how do you get people to not even get in their cars? Because if I want to go out to eat, I'm thinking I'm either going to go to El Cerrito or Broadway or the Lamplighter. Depending on the weather, I can walk to JT's just fine. And so if I'm hungry, we'll do that. Yeah, not 2 minutes. But if I get in my car, I'm going anywhere. If I get in my car, I'll drive to the Hatchery. I'll drive to Marshall. I'll drive to Bill's Grill House. So some of it's taking the people. You've got over 1,000 residential properties within a quarter mile of downtown, and that's a 5-minute walk. And if you can start making those 1,000 households, and it's more than 1,000 households, because some of those properties are like Englewood, where you've got 95 apartment units. Some of them are smaller houses that were converted to apartments or other such multi-family things. So let's say you've got 1,200 to 1,500 households within a 5-minute walk of downtown. How do you convince them to just walk down and get what they want?
What do you, like, I live downtown, you live downtown, you live downtown, you used to live downtown, you live downtown,
No.
you now live downtown. What do you wish was downtown?
Shauna lives downtown.
Shauna lives downtown. What do you wish was downtown?
A warm, cozy environment.
Okay,
Then
so,
I'll travel down there. If I have to walk past what bleak buildings, I'm not interested. Because I can get in my car and drive to a nice lighted parking lot someplace.
I'm hopeful for the museum because I have young children.
oh, you're hopeful for the children's museum, so children's activities. I mean, library also has children's activities too, right? Which I think is a big draw for young families. I want a grocery store. I am so mad about family fare going away.
Oh.
And I know that wasn't, it was walkable, but I didn't have to go to that end of town. I despise that end of town. I will avoid, I've even succumbed to getting my groceries delivered so that I don't have to get into my car and go.
Horrocks would be
Because-
nice.
Huh?
I said a Horrocks would be nice.
Yeah,
If
the
they
Horrocks
could do that,
would be nice too. But I do think like we are also a generation of convenience. We have all grown up where we can get on an app and order anything. So how do you compete with that? And if you're a small business, I'm thinking you have to be catering to both online and in-person sales to make it. You
Our
must-
FedEx man knows what we eat about 4 to 6 days a week.
Yeah, part of it's like supporting businesses in that transition of consumer expectations. Someone pointed out, yeah, they looked at the new census data. I didn't even register, and like, I've seen it. Like 20% of our population is 18 or under.
Mhm.
That is significant. And my train of thought came back and I was saying, like, if you were working on downtown and you're doing it like alongside your community, so like if we get all these surveys back and it says, 80% of people want an Italian restaurant or something, and then we decide, okay, we know what we need to target. And that's what we focus our recruitment efforts on, in addition to like public space improvements and all these things, maybe 2 or 3 years we get one. It's like the public starts to be involved in that, take ownership in it, and like pride in their local economy in a way that maybe we don't plug as much right now. Which is interesting because if we feel like we maybe lean kind of like a conservative community, there's like really a lot of pride in American made and all these kinds of things. How can we translate that to?
That's a hard thing to do when you have a group, especially you just said young people, who don't have a lot of income, right? Like that's another challenge. So Walmart is probably the cheapest place you can buy in bulk, right?
I've been trying to transition, more intentionally toward American-made products every chance I get, and it's difficult sometimes to even, find them and know what they, what to buy. And then it's not cheap either. So you've got to really be invested in buying something and taking care of it rather than just, okay, I'm buying $100 pair of shoes and then not even bother to get them resold when I wear it through. Just get another $100 pair of shoes. I don't know. I think that we do talk in some ways on those things, but it's really about walking the walk, and we've talk about wanting things downtown. And sometimes it's frustrating when things do come downtown and then you don't necessarily see people that said they wanted that.
I wonder if the chamber could help out with that in some way, or you band together as downtown businesses and you have a card and you say, if you go to a downtown business, whether it's out to eat or to Don for window dressings or for a haircut, you can get a mark checked off and then you drop it off maybe at any location after it's completed, and then someone collects it and there's a drawing, right? To just incentivize, support your local, earn your points, and then maybe you get a gift certificate.
They do that like at specific times, they'll do like specific days or like timeframes for that. But I think one of the challenges is like the chamber has a very specific membership, and they're not going to necessarily include the entire downtown. It has no member base.
Oh, right.
So that's one of those things, like figuring out
How to navigate.
how to pair those things well. But yeah, I like that. I think downtown Angola was trying out like downtown dollars or also like referral discounts, kind of like I worked at Tommy Hilfiger when I was younger, and if you bought something, it get printed you out like 15% off coupon to one of their partner brands, which was like Bass or Van Heusen. You can kind of takes a lot of work, but you can do that for your own area.
Jonesville has that, Jonesville Dollars, there was a men's store, there was none left. Go in there and they know you by name over there.
Men are loyal shoppers right here.
What's that?
I said I heard men are loyal shoppers.
I
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency, they don't return as often.
It'll fit.
It's because we're lazy shoppers. It's because we're lazy shoppers. We buy something like, I don't wanna bother taking this back.
But that is something maybe that can be discussed by the promotion and marketing end of your group. Like, how do you actually get people to invest in downtown, to walk around, to see what's down here?
We need to be making it hours.
But I must say, it is always amazing when you look at the big box stores. I cannot imagine what their electrical bill must be, their overhead for employees, for air conditioning, heating, their block maintenance. See, I think they used to, a lot of their goods were supplied by the corporations free of cost. They just get them on the shelf and then you pay for them as you sell them. I don't know if that goes continue. I know when they open up, that's how they do that. But it's like, how can a small store not compete with that?
You join, become a group of 15 and hire one dude to wash the windows and one, have some sort of pool.
But was
Sort
it,
of collective.
didn't you find Felpop or a family fair cost for product? Wasn't that about the same as Myers and?
Sometimes a little bit more expensive, but I didn't care.
But we also hit up the manager section quite a bit
Yeah, the
too.
manager section.
And so, sometimes you find things cheaper than out at Meyer. And sometimes it makes you think about what you're going to, having fun with a meal because, okay, well, I just got a bunch of turnips for $1. So now I guess I'm gonna buy some kind of, curry turnip dish or something, to do. So sometimes that was its own form of entertainment, going there, seeing what's in the manager section, and then trying to figure out, okay, what can I make with this?
There's a difference in quality to when it came to fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
Kind of Myers, I feel like, is a better quality.
yes, it's true. Well, mine are
And
different.
they also throw away a lot of vegetables and fruits, like Myers waste on their produce is.
We were in Marshall one morning, traveling somewhere, stopped in, they have a donut shop, downtown bakery. I've heard about this, wasn't it? Louis. I figured some really classic place. I walk in and barely turn around with 3 other people in there. That's it.
It's good, it's good.
They have a reputation.
There's a neat little deli in Hillsdale, it's just this little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but I don't even know if I can find it again right now, actually, because it's such a hole in the wall, but you get in there and it's neat. I mean, you watch people just cycle through because all the locals love the place.
I don't have anything else other than looking forward to transformation strategies and the public survey, figuring out what things we should be prioritizing and I'll start chipping away at that.
Yeah.
Maybe these guys can come to your next ADA meeting.
If it's between the hours of 8 AM and 5, no.
I was actually gonna ask, how does a joint meeting work?
How does the what?
How does a joint meeting work?
I haven't heard of it. Do you mean?
Because the big public unveil of the charters would be like an easy one to have a joint meeting. I imagine I could probably get 40 people there.
You all mind if I excuse myself?
Thanks for
Talk about that, if you wanna do that.
I didn't talk to you there, I just wrote it down for
Yeah.
Who's
that.
that?
Give a Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas to everybody.
I mean, I think we could just invite everybody, and it would be, we've done that.
We have to post it, but yeah. That's what I wanted to challenge.
Commission and city council.
February 23rd.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's good.
it's not difficult. We've done planning commission and city council together.
Some of the issues through the whole Main Street process have been trying to make sure that we're not violating the Open Meetings Act and that we'd like to invite everyone to everything, but then you end up with a situation where maybe you got a quorum, unintentionally. So it's been a lot of fun trying to make sure we understand the posting requirements and everything through this process as well.
I think we're gonna err on the side of just. Just making a note for the one that's the board member training. Just do that, but do it in here and give them time. Just decide that's what we're gonna do. The easiest way.
Speaking of board member training, one of Katie's tasks while she's with us is going to be to help with board member recruitment and training kind of packages.
Yes, a big like guide to all the boards and commissions.
Yeah.
Boards and commissions that we have.
Yeah, guide to all the boards and commissions, skill set, member expectations, orientation packets of some sort. That might look a little different for every board and commission, depending on what's useful, but, and then also bylaws. I'm pretty sure that doesn't apply to this group, so.
Yeah, we actually have bylaws, which is
Yeah.
incredible. DDA, we can't even find signed, dated anything on the DDA. We've been kind of going off on unsigned work. We're still.
Are we ready to adjourn?
Did we do one last call for public comments? Is there any public? Anybody online on the telephone?
I see no one joining us online. There's no call-in anymore. A lot of those procedures were allowed by emergency rules through the last year that the since expired. So we don't take online public comment anymore.
And we had a meeting in December. Did we hit 4?
This was our 4th meeting this year. Part of our bylaws state that we need to hold 4 meetings a year. So thank you all for taking the time to come to this meeting. Yes.
Here.
And our next meeting is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. And I assume it's at 5:30 p.m.
Yes, 5:30 p.m.
All right. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank you.